Kia ora tātou, i te tuatahi mi a tātou i tēnei wā, i te whakamai i tēnei kaupapa. Huri no te mihi e nā whenua, a tangata whenua e te pito ana. Nā te rangi me nā te ranginui me nā te pukenga. Ka mihi anō e te maunga e tuana, a maua me te mone i te taha o Tauranga Moana. Mai te ki tai, mā runga ki raro. Huri no, ko wai au, ko Caine Taiapa toko ingoa. Ka whakuri au i te tēnei taho o te mona, mo nā te rangi me nā te ranginui. Me whakuri anō e nau i te taho o te hokianga, te rarawa, me te wako o te arawa i te taho o te rotiti. Kia ora tātou. What I'm going to talk to you guys about today is a project called Mauri Moana, Maori Tangata, Mauri Ora within the Sustainable Seas project. It's headed under the Value Seas section, and it's led by a series of, staunch tangata whenua from around the motu, Kelly Renata, Kimberley, Maxwell, myself and Sean Awatere. We also have, are fortunate to have Kate Davies along with us as well from Niwa. So, mate. Yeah. So the project really looks at how do we understand or we use cultural values within an area around ecosystem-based management. Now, the ecosystem-based management is something that is stemmed out of the Sustainable Seas project, and for us, we're looking at values within the marine ecosystem-based management model. I won't go on too much about what ecosystem-based management is, and it has various, instances about it, and I think it's in that research book that was mentioned earlier. But it has differing views as well for tangata whenua, for society and the like, and what we're trying to do is understand those views. So our real aim for the project is to look at the awareness and the diversity of values within New Zealanders, both non-Māori and Māori. Which hold for the marine environment that are integral in our marine ecosystem-based management, i.e. under this progeny of the Sustainable Seas project. For Māori, the connection to the taiao, to the moana, to the ngahere is a connection through a term which is called whakapapa. We're connected, we are understanding that we are a taina to our taiao, and an understanding that the taiao is a part of us. Here in Tauranga Moana we have a whakatauki called ko au te moana, ko te moana ko au, and it literally says we are the moana is me. With that in mind, I'm going to step through a few things that we had come across in terms of what we've been looking at in terms of values, both from a Māori context and again from a New Zealand societal context, and again from an Indigenous context from overseas as well. Māori values as a whole are large, but also containable to tikanga. Māori have a tikanga that is connected to them through their learnings, their teachings, and it's also place specific. For us, we wanted to look at these tikanga values, what it meant for Māori, and we also wanted to look at how these values can be articulated, especially at a place specific level. So in that instances, we came to two areas, broad areas, that is, of values that we were looking at for Māori. That is our tikanga values, which in general, and for an example, could be kaitiakitanga, which is astute and known through all our tangata whenua throughout the motu. What is known or is coming to fruition in most cases, and especially in policy, is that kaitiakitanga means different, has a different meaning for different tangata whenua in their different place or being, which means it's place specific. It's unique, in that circumstance because their taiao has developed their tikanga, and their tikanga has also developed how they live in that taiao. So there's some good examples around haputanga, is a good example, but also specific species of harvesting species that the tangata whenua will be accustomed to within the marine environment. Other values that we looked at were within New Zealand society as a whole. We had some great work done by Kate Davies in the meantime, looking at what kind of values do normal society, I shouldn't say normal society, non-Māori society, I have a bad habit of saying that out loud too. non-Maori society values have within the marine environment. And Kate sort of articulated that, there's always a fixation, a tradition of culture that has been developed over generations, accustomed to place and time as well. They have values around looking after their environment. They have values around, There's values around looking after the environment. There's values around pertaining their environment. And there's also values about maintaining their own culture that they have developed over their generations as well. And then the other area that we look at is Indigenous values. And what I mean by Indigenous is outside of Aotearoa. As we know, there are other Indigenous people other than Maori, and I have to say this to my grandmother. But we as a whole, we as an Indigenous, race, have unique values. And what we wanted to do was try and find those connections that resembled those what was in Tauranga itself, or in Aotearoa itself as well. So for that, we sort of looked at our expertise. Some of our people have travelled around overseas to different areas in the Pacific, and some have also got the long straw and got to go to some of these places during this project. It wasn't me. I'm not moaning, but anyway, in these places around Hawaii and the British Columbia, and also our cousins across the ditch, Australia. There was unique values, and those unique values were really attached to ours, I guess. They had a sense of they're a progeny of the land, they're a progeny of the atua. They're a progeny and have a responsibility to look after those atua as taina. And with those common themes, we were sort of like, these are good examples, and how can we bring these all together to identify what's relevant in terms of feeding into a management placard like ecosystem-based management, but also maintaining the mana of each of those tikanga that they held. So we began a literature review. Now, I'm sceptical about literature reviews because my institutional teaching teaches me that to do a literature review, you need to start critiquing things, looking at people's ideas and finding gaps. For an Indigenous group, you can't do that, without a doubt. Indigenous groups have their perception, have their own mana, and it's not up for us to do it. So what we did look at was all these connections. And some of the connections that we did find were they have a connection through their genealogy to their whenua, to their Moana. They have a real sense of ahi ka kaitiakitanga. They have a real sense about who they are in this world and what they want for their people, their children, and their future. And those are just some of the instances. Holistical ecosystem-based management, unique to Aotearoa. I just stuck a question mark on that today because my upbringing is that our tangata whenua have always looked at the environment in a holistical manner. And it's nothing new in that sense. But what is new is that how do we articulate these values within a society that is Aotearoa. So in a short story, how does Aotearoians, that's a new word that I just made up, put all their values together to help better manage our ecosystem? Now, to do that, there's many approaches, and I think to look at things, we sort of have to start off with an even keel. We have to acknowledge both knowledge systems, and we have to both acknowledge our various ways that we interpret what ecosystem-based management is. So in hindsight, it can't be weighted to one side or another. It can't be enveloped within a worldview or another. It has to be equal. And the long story short, that is the vision that we sort of see for ecosystem-based management. I guess for tangata whenua, it's probably the vision that they have as well, but in the background, they're making sure that they are still articulated and accustomed to their tikanga and values. So what values and knowledge informed by EBM at all levels? So Māori values, I guess, for me is paramount. Me being pro-Māori, as you can tell, is very astute in the treaty, and the treaty sets up the platform for this path to take fruition. The treaty is, as someone mentioned before, an acknowledgement of a partnership between tangata whenua and non-Māori and New Zealanders alike. It has core principles, and then from those core principles, we start to look at what kind of outcomes can we achieve in terms of these tikanga values, societal values, and things that we can learn from overseas. Some examples of looking at tikanga values, and this is a little bit closer to home, constructed and I guess in looking after or assessing the environment, cultural health indexes. Cultural health indexes were contributed within this Moana here by pretty talented people, led by myself, and basically looking at how can we construct cultural values within an assessment environment and produce or disseminate those values to other people outside of their hapu. So we went through a series of phases to look at how can we articulate cultural values. Now, cultural health indexes have pros and cons, I guess. And the very first con is that it's trying to develop a mātauranga system within a Western science framework. The other one is that it doesn't really articulate what that value means and how that value can be addressed. More importantly, it doesn't give the mana back to the whānau to represent that value. Basically what it does is give the tikanga or the value of that indicator put into a context that can be interpreted or misinterpreted in its own matter or whatever context it's in. So, key challenges for implementing EBM. Well, the first thing we have to do is understand it from both worldviews. Understanding ecosystem-based management from a tangata whenua perspective, I would assume would be quite easily because tangata whenua have been chirping about it for a very long time, especially in the resource management area. I guess what we have to do is how do we contribute that information into a discussion where we're all learning about each other's values. So there it comes around to decision-making rights, and that's part of the treaty process as well. You look at co-management, co-governance, which has only been enacted through a treaty settlement process, and which I still scratch my head about that. Positioning values, looking at how do we disseminate our cultural values, how do we collate our cultural values with other values, and how do we understand them. And resourcing, which has been harped on in the two previous presentations. It's huge for our whānau to be kaitiaki. There's no greater reward than being a kaitiaki for your whenua, your hapu and your iwi, but it comes at a cost. And understanding those resourcing costs need to be investigated. Validity. So validity is a big one, I guess, in terms of whose values do we portray into this big area of ecosystem-based management. And that's a big discussion that we need to look at next. And that's where we're at the coalface at the moment. So if you look at this whare in its instance at the moment, we have a whare where there's two views, but they're together in one whare. The only thing about this whare at the moment is it's two-dimensional. What we need to do is understand how we fill that whare and understand the tikanga of that whare so that we all can make these decisions around ecosystem-based management. Kia ora.